Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 57th video of my video journal series. Today's date is Monday, the 6th of April 2026. So it's been a long day. And also, how have my day's been? My day's been very good, thank you. I've just been staying at home, doing a bit of work. Just the stereotypical Monday stuff. And I guess something I wanted to, share with you in this video today is some life experiences, I guess I'll just start off with my early childhood. One thing I remember today from my early childhood is that I had a really big fascination with reading, more specifically with a comic book series called Big Nate. I used to remember reading that a lot as a child. And I still got that very big coffee table book that they released, like the Big Nate Omnibus. Um, did I say omnibus? No, I mean omnibus. Very large coffee table book, essentially. And I remember, I still got that with me, but I'm pretty sure I had the individual Big Nate books somewhere. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if they released them in individual books, but I definitely remember reading Big Nate before I got that big coffee table book. So, I would have definitely read it, in some sort of book form. I just can't remember where though. Or maybe that was my first exposure to Big Nate, that big coffee table book. I honestly don't know, but I used to remember, reading a lot of Big Nate. And, as a kid, I guess still do now. I still like reading and all that. But I guess, what else can I say? I really like reading. Hopefully I'll get back into the swing of reading. I mean, I do a lot of university readings, the textbooks and homework that they assign us. But I want to do more reading in my spare time. Maybe over the weekend maybe next weekend or whenever I get free time, I'll do a little bit more. And I guess another thing that's been on my mind is see, I don't really come scripted with these. I remember one time, oh man, this is a funny story. This happened to me a couple of months ago. I was at a swimming pool, and I remember I was with one of my friends, and he was getting his stuff from the locker, and while he was waiting, I was scratching my nose because you have that feeling where one day you just got that itchy part of your body. It might be your hair, eyes, legs, armpits, or whatever. Well, now it was the nose for me, so I was just there scratching my nose, and then this guy came up to me, a complete stranger, and he says, "Oh mate, I just want to tell you something." He patted me on the back, and I'm like, "All right, well, why is this random guy just giving me a pat on the back?" And then I turned around, and then he just started scolding me. He started yelling at me. Complete stranger, never knew him, and he was complaining to me about how I was scratching my nose, even though I was scratching my arm now. See what I mean? He was just yelling at me, saying what you did was so disgusting, along the lines of that, and he just kept on scolding me for scratching my nose. Mind you, this was just a regular patron, right? It wasn't a staff member, it wasn't anyone like that. It was just a regular guy at the swimming pool. And he just got irritated that I was scratching my nose, even though I had made no contact with him, you know, visual or physical contact with him. I didn't even look his way. I don't know how he saw me, but afterwards I just laughed it off, sort of thing, because I'm like, this loony's clearly off his head. Because that's like going up to a baby and just yelling at a baby for crying or for picking their nose or whatever. I wasn't really picking my nose, I was scratching it, but you know what I mean. So, I've definitely had some weird encounters like that. Another weird encounter I've had was in New Zealand. I remember one time I was on a train. I actually have two separate experiences in New Zealand. And don't get me wrong, New Zealand, a lovely country, but there are a little bit of weirdo people out there. I remember one time I was on a train in Auckland, and there was this one guy sitting. He had sunglasses on or whatever, and I remember just like looking his way for like a second, and then he says, "What the fuck are you looking at?" sort of thing, and I'm like, "All right, well, geez, keep it down." Like, you know, um, man, you just get like those type. I guess you get them here in Sydney as well, but you also get those type of people elsewhere. And I'm like, all right, well, what made you so angry today, sir, to unleash it out on me? I remember also another time where I was in New Zealand. I was on a train and I was speaking with another passenger, and then this old lady, it was an old Australian lady, she came up to me and she said, "Oh, we appreciate if you keep the noise down. If you can continue talking, but please keep it down." And then she left, and I don't know, talked to her husband. And in my mind, I was like, well, I wasn't speaking that loudly. I was pretty much speaking like this, my normal speaking voice. And it's on a train, right? It's a public environment. It was one of those like long distance trains. It was a train from Auckland to Wellington, the Northern Explorer. So it was like a 12-hour train trip. But I was speaking with another passenger, and obviously, if someone has issue with my loudness or voice, and I guess I'll keep it down. If something's bothering you, you can always come up to me and say, "Oh, it's bothering me," and I'm like, "All right, well, sorry, I'll keep it down." I did apologize because sometimes I am a bit of a loudspeaker, but there's some instances where I just feel like I'm just a little bit inconveniencing other people, and I think to myself, well, I am a bit annoying. I might not be the smartest tool in the shed. Some of my actions could seem a little bit weird to other people, and some other people can get irritated. I definitely had people who have unleashed, some form of anger. And sometimes I think to myself, well, maybe it's just because I was not acting in a stupid way, but I just keep on making small mistakes in life, and I just feel like in some ways, I was, inconveniencing people and incompetent, even though I was really trying my best. And I'm still young, I make a lot of like dumb mistakes, but there's some times where I wish, man, I wish I was just, like more competent. But you can't really change that because you're young, and even when you try your hardest to act professional and all of that, you still make mistakes and you still get yelled at, unfortunately. And being yelled at is something I really haven't been accustomed to since childhood. I don't think anyone should really be yelled at. I mean, depends what the reason is, but for a stupid little mistake, I don't think it's all that worthy to be yelled at. But I always viewed myself as the best course of action is just to stay quiet. Do nothing. That way, no one can yell at you. But then I realized to myself, maybe that's not the right action. Maybe the right action is clearly stating, well, I just thought this. If you have an issue with the way I did something, then, say it to me, but I feel like I should be treated human. I feel like if you had a thing against me, or if you had an issue, say it in a normal manner. But then, there's some people just like take it out because I don't know. They think, oh, look at this, some hippie guy. It's like a mix between Jim Henson and George Carlin. But like, I guess that's one way. I guess some people do think I'm like a hippie, or do think I'm, you know, one of those people because I got my hair tied back. And I've had some people laugh at my appearance before, mostly kids and all that. But I like never really bothered me too much. Um, but I guess this is a little bit of a darker video, but it's just something that's been on my mind recently. Um, Especially when it comes to childhood, because I remember as a kid, not being self-aware that I was annoying and dumb, and I guess some adults just got fed up with me. Um, I guess like I definitely had a few teachers who I thought I was annoying, or definitely like a few train passengers or people who go to swimming pools think I'm annoying, um, or just just say to my face, "Shut up," basically. But I guess not everyone's perfect. I mean, with my I guess, flaws is that sometimes I can, you know, seem a little bit boring, a little bit annoying. Maybe I go off course a little bit too much. Maybe the way I speak, maybe the way I look is a little bit, I guess, of a target. Um, you know, and by target I mean, well, some people, I guess, when they see a beard and ponytail, all that, they're like, oh man, either it's a hippie or um, I've definitely had instances where, you know, you feel like people perceive you in a certain way because you look a certain way, especially around clothing. I feel like sometimes when I go out in Crocs, my green jumper, jeans, and all that, I'm pretty sure there's some people who think, oh, that guy looks like a hippie or he looks homeless. And I don't have anything against hippies or anything like that, but hippies have a negative, I guess, connotation here in Australia. Um, but sometimes, I wear, nicer clothes in public. I wear like a nice jumper, collared shirt, suit pants, and I notice I get treated a lot differently. So yeah, I guess clothes really can sort of dictate, I guess, a person's perception um, of you, even though they haven't spoken to you or known you that well. And I guess, in some ways, I can't really change what other people really think about me. I can't really change, um, you know, people telling me this and that, and then I might feel a little bit embarrassed. But I realize I shouldn't really feel embarrassed. I know this is like a little bit of a weird thing to talk about, but it's just, I guess being on my mind. And I guess to end this video on a happy note, it's that, well, there's definitely been times in my life where I felt like I was a bit annoying or, didn't know how to communicate that well. And that's really where I guess, struggled a bit. As a kid, I loved reading. And maybe part of why I loved reading books like Big Nate and all that was because it was like a way to escape things, since I wasn't very good at the whole social communicating. I was more into books and playing games by myself. And, I slowly realized to accept who I am, to accept that, some people might perceive me as annoying, but I do try my hardest. And, I realize that the best course of action in life is not to stay silent. Staying silent is the worst thing you can do in life, I feel like, because I believe that humans were created to voice their opinions, but some people might not be able to voice those opinions, or you might be someone like me who says, oh, there's all these issues going around in the world. All these people have different problems. Am I just going to seem too self centered for voicing my own problems? Well, no. That's like saying, oh, this guy lost his grandfather means you can't cry about you losing your mother, for instance. Well, that's just complete bogus. Everyone has their own issues in life, but that doesn't mean because one person's got it quote unquote worse than you, that means you can't complain about it. No, I always hated such notion. So I guess that's why, like most people like myself, we really didn't speak a lot when we were younger. Um, and that's why I like, I guess, books. Why I like most things I do now because um, yeah, I guess it was that period of like isolation, I believe. But um, you know, I believe if you definitely have an issue in your life, you just speak up about it. I always hated in high school when teachers said, "Oh, if you think you got it bad," sort of thing, or when an adult says that to you. But the truth is, you do have problems, and I feel like it's best to acknowledge that. That's why young people's voices aren't heard because, you know, adults want to voice their problems and they got problems, but, I feel like, um, the youth also have problems. Um, and we need to voice those problems. And instead of dismissing those problems, we should acknowledge them because there's nothing wrong or harmful in just acknowledging that, you know, separate people have separate problems in life, no matter how old or young they are. Um, you know, and I guess just have time to hear out what other people's problems are. Um, just listen. And I guess, I feel like, how do I end this off? I guess, I wish I'd never really, I guess I wish I don't see myself as annoying. I know it might be a little bit too harsh on myself, but sometimes, you might have to adjust your behavior, um, just so then you don't want to think, you don't want the other person to think you're annoying or acting in a certain way. Um, but, just be you. Don't be afraid to be yourself. I always act in a nice and polite manner, and I expect other people to do that to me. If they're not going to do that, then bon voyage. um, but yeah, that was just something that's been on my mind today. I know it's a little bit like a bit of a darker sort of narrative, but I guess that's just one thing I remember throughout my life and a little bit throughout my childhood. But off with a positive message is, yeah, don't be afraid to be yourself. Everyone's got a bit of problems in life. There's some times in life where we just want to like rage quit at like a game, or you building or doing a puzzle and then you suddenly forget a piece and you can't locate it, or you're building like a, I guess, house of cards and then it all tumbles down, or you try and fix one thing but then you get two other issues. And I've definitely been there. It's almost like every day, you're trying to like plug in leaks. But I feel like we need to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and then we realize, all right, well, best to talk about it with someone. Best to talk about it with someone. If you don't have someone to talk to, you're always free to leave a comment down below. I'll try to reply to everyone's comments. Yet again, I'm not like, I guess, a psychiatrist or anything, but I like to listen to other people's experiences and make people feel like they are being heard in exchange for people listening to me. I feel like that's a fair system, and always reach out if you need any help in life. Um, because I feel like staying silent is not the best option. That despite me, I guess, being silent throughout most of my childhood, that staying silent is, well, not beneficial. Humans were made to speak. The reason why God created human voice was for us to communicate and voice our problems and our desires to other people. That's a art in of it itself. But anyway, yeah, I guess that's my end of my, I guess, psychological TED talk or whatever. But I guess I'll catch you next time and see you later. Bye. Take care.